What does your day-to-day look like?
Every day varies just because of patients. Certain days I have meetings, case consultations. So here we focus primarily on, working as a entire team to make sure that we're providing the services as needed. So if there's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and therapists that are all involved, but mainly doing individual sessions as well as groups.
Okay.
So I do a DBT group, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And that's teaching emotion regulation, distress tolerance, how to be effective in relationships, and mindfulness.
Number 2, how do you diagnose your patients?
So usually you have one session in order to do the intake, which kind of talks about biological aspects and then as well as society. So kind of checking out what are the symptoms, how long they've been occurring, how are they impairing day-to-day functioning, and based off of that, we have a DSM, and the DSM, you go ahead and see wherever the criteria are. So time frames and symptoms are the most important, and based off of that, you'll kind of assess on, how is it impairing, and is it mild, moderate, or severe, psychosis, everything.
So what do you do if you're not sure about, have you ever not been sure?
Well, an intake, it's continuous, so it's not just one session. What you'll do is have your first appointment kind of gives you an idea, and that's why we meet as a team too, just to make sure the diagnosis is accurate. Now, the longer you've been a therapist, the more in tune you are with your patients, and then you start discovering, what's the actual diagnosis. With the diagnosis, it could change as well. So it could begin as mild depression or major depressive disorder, and as time goes on, there's environmental aspects. It might adjust to moderate or severe, or symptoms of ADHD initially, and then through sessions starting to discover, hey, this is more trauma-based, so then it's more PTSD. So just because the diagnosis starts at one point doesn't mean that's what you're stuck with.
And then you find out more. Oh, okay.
So it's ongoing.
Number 3, how do you measure progress?
What I observe what the patient's expressing and what they're endorsing. So we have the AOQ forms, the questionnaires, right? That's to monitor progress. I view progress also as a person that wasn't able to get out of bed and now is out of bed one day out of the week. Hygiene, right? With depression, hygiene is the first to go. So it's if they're taking a shower, that's progress. If they have an avoidance personality and now they're addressing whatever the concerns are, that's major progress. PTSD, they're not hypersensitive or alert any longer. Now they're in the moment. So progress varies, and I think anytime someone comes into session, that is progress, because in the past they've avoided it. So I can't say, all the symptoms go away, because that's not going to happen. Realistically, these symptoms are going to be there. It's just no longer impairing their day-to-day functioning.
How do you encourage a patient to speak about their issues?
More validation. So I think a lot of the work that is done is when I'm quiet. I could use all these fancy techniques, and sometimes we just need a moment of silence with our mind and just saying everything's going to be okay. The presence of a safe individual, and a lot of patients I have worked with don't have a safe individual. So if I could just be that person there, and my presence is going to be what's needed, that's what it is. With the validation, the reassurance, that's the other portion. And of course, there's a lot of different modalities, different theories. I have those in the back of my head too. I still apply it. I just don't say, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing CBT. I think it's more the relationship. If you feel comfortable with your therapist, you get the most. If you're like, I don't like you, you're not going to get anything out of it. And I'm very upfront on my first session of, these are the expectations in session. Hey, let me know if I piss you off. Let me know if you hate me. That's fine. Let me get you someone that's better then. People come in here, and I've worked with the toughest cases, where they're very guarded, and I'm coming because of court and all these things, and it's just okay, then we'll just sit here. So if you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk.
Well, you can't really make someone.
I won't. I don't work harder than people because it's not my problem to solve. And I try to encourage my patients to say, you got skills. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
Now learn to use them. And, you're doing the best that you can at any given moment. That's really what it comes down to.
How have you handled a client who failed to progress?
I don't view anything as a failure.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because sometimes it's not that good fit, and that's why they haven't progressed.
Okay.
Sometimes there's blocking beliefs, things that get in the way of getting better and progressing.
Like what?
I'm undeserving of happiness. And when someone has that narration in their mind, and any time that they start progressing, they start feeling guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I getting better? I shouldn't be getting better. So I really try to bring in the different perspectives and say, hey, look at it this way too. And if the patient failed, right, I take it as I failed that patient then. And then my goal is to then get them with another therapist that's maybe going to be a better fit. And I can't have this image of what failure looks like and what progress looks like, because otherwise I'm setting my patient up for unrealistic expectations. And as long as they're going forward, no matter the pace, that's all that matters.
What is your psychological perspective?
So I'm more of an integrative therapist.
What's that? Or like a lot of them together?
So what integrative is like I don't stick to one modality. I usually start off with, right in the beginning, it's more of the intake, so it's more person-centered. Yes, I'm directing exactly what's needed, but the patient's going to share what they want. Okay. And then it's more CBT. I do some teaching, psychoed in regards to how the thoughts, emotions, body sensations impact behaviors. Talk about vulnerabilities. Like I said, I'm a DBT therapist, a dialectical behavioral therapist. So I bring that in with, so that's the mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulation and distress tolerance, learning skills on how to manage that. I do narrative. I do everything, really focusing on trauma, going back to the childhood at times if needed.
Listening to everyone's like trauma and like everything they're going through, I know that's emotionally draining. How do you separate like work and then your life, and how do you have enough emotional energy to give to your loved ones so you're not like burnt out from work? Because I know that's like a really hard thing.
When my health got impacted, that's when I said enough is enough. I'm doing my patients a disservice by taking them home. So I had this ritual after I leave work, and I started this about 5 years ago. Every time I'm going to be leaving work, once I shut down my computer, files are put away, I go to the restroom and I wash my hands. And that's a cue for my brain to say, I've done enough that I could today. It's time to go. The reason why I log off and put everything away is because now when I come into my office, I just need to grab my things and I can walk out. Because otherwise, without the balance, it's going to happen. There's going to be a burnout. There's then tends to be resentment built towards patients or even family members, right? Like everyone wants something from me. And it's really just challenging our own selves, getting to know, like, what's the reason I really want to be available to everyone.